Rev up your engines! I'm going to tell you why a Toyota Tundra can be one of the best used trucks to buy, especially the early ones. Now this is a 2000. The first one sold in the United States for $99. It was made in Indiana. And realize that people say, oh, it's a Japanese truck. 75% of the parts in Tundras come from North America. So they're really an American truck. Now granted, these trucks are always expensive, relatively speaking, even used. This one was bought 160,000 miles on it, and he had to pay 14 grand. Now a lot of people would say, boy, he was an idiot. He paid $14,000 for a truck with all that mileage. Well, 8 years later, it now has twice that mileage if we get some of the dirt out of the way. 322,575 miles. And how does it run? Let's start it up. It still purrs like a kitten. I wouldn't say he got ripped off. It's still running like a clock. He abuses this thing like no tomorrow. Yes, the paint is spray-on bed liner, what's left of it. A few pieces have been knocked off over the days. His son, who he bought it for originally, got mad and he cut the tailgate off, so there's no tailgate anymore. Now his son's out driving big rigs now. Left his father with the truck, and it's still going strong. Now recently he picked up a Cadillac used in California, drove it all the way back to Tennessee, towed it with this thing, and didn't have any problems. Now the owner of this truck is a bit of a madman. It is rated at 7,200 pounds towing. One time he got his big trailer and he picked up steel plate, 1-inch steel plate. He had to pay for it, so he weighed the steel plate on their scale. And the plate alone was 18,000 pounds. So then you got the trailer and everything else, and he towed it away. He did say it was sitting pretty low, but it made it back and forth and nothing broke. I understand these early ones especially were overbuilt because Toyota never built full-size pickups before this. The T100 was a precursor, but they only had V6s. This has got the V8 engine in it. Toyota wanted to make a truck to prove to the world they could make something tough. So these things are extremely overbuilt. Proof that it was built for 7,200 pounds towing, and he put probably close to 20,000 pounds he was pulling. And it didn't break down. Try that with a GM or Ram. Watch the rear end fall off on it. The heart of these things is a V8 engine. They're solid, reliable engines. Now, since this is the older one, it only has one drawback, and that's that it's got rubber timing belts. And it is an interference engine. So if the belt breaks when you're going 60, the piston will hit the valves and it'll destroy the engine. So it's a good idea every 100,000 miles or so, change the timing belt, the pulleys, and the water pump, so you don't have any problems in the future. But that's minor when you consider how long these things can last. And I mean, really, listen to it. Other than the occasional fan belt squeak, listen to that engine. Does it clack? No. When we rev it up, does it have rods knocking? No. Now this is an early one, so it was built in Indiana. Later they started making them in San Antonio, and they still had very good quality. But these ones that were built by Hoosiers in Indiana, if you can find one and it's running like this, snap it up. Now when they say they don't make them like they used to some extent, that is true. One, the prices are 2 to 3 times as much for a new one. Price one of these things new. With the solid frame that these things have, they can basically last forever if you want to maintain them. This is not some wimpy unibody construction. This has a gigantic frame on it. And as you see, it's pretty workable. Everything on these, there's a lot of space. Very simple. Leaf suspension. Simple stuff that's easy to fix and can last forever. Now another proof of the virtual indestructibility of these Tundras is, try finding one in a junkyard. That's the one downside, is it's hard to find used parts for them because people get them, they fix them. And if somebody sells one to a junkyard, odds are those junkyard dudes are going to fix it and sell it and make a good profit. That's how solid made they are. This is the all-wheel drive version. One of the reasons that he had to pay 14 grand for it, even though it had 160,000 miles on it. You're not going to get stranded one of these things. A lot of guys are totally happy with just a rear-wheel drive as a regular, everyday pickup truck. Now, to prove the indestructibility, the day he bought it for his son, they went off-roading, serious off-roading, and he decided he wanted pictures of the truck flying over him. So they found some hills, and this thing was flying 6 feet up in the air, and he's under it taking pictures of the truck they just bought. I told you he was crazy. Here he is. Now, is this man crazy or what? It's still working on the original automatic transmission. And yeah, he had to change the radiator. They are plastic radiators. And he had to change the ignition coils too. When it's such a complicated job, here they are. One bolt, snap them up. We're talking about simplicity. For a V8 engine, as you can see, this thing has a lot of working room. You compare a modern Ford V8, some of those, you can only see the 2 front cylinders. The rest of them are way under the firewall. No working room. This thing has tons of working room. And if you don't like the power that it has, you want a lot more than close to 300, you can do whatever you want. You want to turbocharge it, you want to supercharge it. These engines are overbuilt. They can take it. And sure, it's a Toyota, they don't break down all that much, but when they do, there's all kinds of working room. Especially one of these 4-wheel drive jobs, they got so much clearance. Unless you're doing a brake job, you don't have to take the wheels off or even jack it up. You can just roll under. Yeah, you're nice and high up in the air. Hey, as old as this thing is, it still rides quite well. Now, years ago, he put new front struts on the front, but the back still got the original shocks on it. Now, it may be a big old pickup truck, and it's old as the hills, but watch what happens when you step on the gas. There go the pickets right by the side. Got a nice sound too. And really, when you consider it's an all-wheel drive pickup truck with 326,000 miles, and we're talking about 21 years old, it still rides quite well. It's not bouncing around like a beat-up old pickup truck. So if you're looking for a good work truck, don't whine about what these people want for these Toyota Tundras, because they can last a long time. You're going to pay a lot for them. Let's say you just want a knock-around pickup truck. Go get an old F-150 or an old Ram from the 80s or 90s that you can get dirt cheap, and it can be okay for pulling stuff back and forth. But if you want something that can still do serious work, you really can't beat a Tundra used. And after all, when he bought it, it did have a grill and a tailgate. That's just due to attrition. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Well, no surprise, it's a class action suit against Dodge for their Dodge Demons. They have these hood scoops on the 2018s, and these are the fancy SRT Hellcat versions. They're not cheap. This particular suit was started by a man who paid $166,000 for one, and the hood scoop kept warping, looked bad, and the first time he brought it back, said they fixed it, and he said they drilled holes and they popped another one on, and now it's warped and coming off. And he's saying, of course, that lowers the value of the car, which of course it does. If you got a brand new car, you paid $166,000, and they put new parts and repaint them, the paint isn't original anymore, the value of the car goes down the toilet. The scoop warps and it can chip the paint. $166,000 car, you'd expect a little bit better quality, but then again, you know, Chrysler, Dodge, hey, you know, ever since Fiat took over, they weren't known for great quality to begin with, and they've been going downhill quite a bit. And of course, they fight this. They don't say, oh, we're so sorry. They're like, oh, we'll put this cheap fix, drill some holes, put another one on. And when they put the second one on, it started warping too, because of course, they didn't do a very good job, because it's an under warranty, half-assed way to fix something. Don't, why not replace the hood with something built right? No, they're just $166,000 he paid, and just snap another one on and paint it, and then it warped too. Fiat Chrysler is denying all this, saying that, oh, no, this is just a cosmetic thing. Well, yeah, it is a cosmetic thing if you think about it, but hey, it lowers the value of the car. The guy paid all that money when he was a fool to pay $166,000 for a Dodge product. Those things, their values drop like stones once they get older. And with a problem hood scoop, hey, you're going to get even more lower resale value. So I kind of agree with the guy, but of course, they're not going to agree with it. They just want to fight it. They just want to pass the buck saying, well, that's just cosmetic and we fixed it. But They didn't even fix it right the second time. So listen to Scotty, stay away from Dodge products if you value your money and your sanity, because even if they admit they did something wrong, they won't do it right the second time. They'll just keep doing it over and over again. What do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And you're supposed to learn from your mistakes. Obviously, they haven't. They keep putting the same part back on, and it warps too. All I have to say is if you don't buy them, you don't have to worry about any of these problems at all. You certainly don't have to worry about going to court. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.